All right, Krystal, what's on your radar?
Well, as you know, the big Mike Pence versus Kamala Harris showdown happened last night in Utah. I know you all have been waiting all year for this moment. Just kidding. No one was waiting for this moment. Honestly, beyond the answers, the thing that to me was most noteworthy of last night, and I'm going to play a little bit of what I thought was the strongest moment, but was just how weirdly normal it was. Two completely conventional politicians going back and forth, trading talking points at a time when the entire world appears to be on fire. As you know, of course, we're still in the middle of a pandemic. There's been a mass super spreader event at the White House. The president just pulled out of stimulus talks. Millions of people are struggling to pay their bills, including rent, including mortgages, including utilities, facing shutoffs. And of course, we've had unrest in the streets and a mass protest movement, the likes of which, frankly, we haven't seen in modern American history. So against this insane backdrop, we have two of the most standard issue politicians conducting themselves in the most standard issue way. In a sense, it's kind of a preview of what the Biden administration will actually be. When they say return to normal, this is what it looked like. So while it was kind of nice and a lot less infuriating to have like the madman in the corner throwing bombs and setting himself on fire, it also did remind me of why people chose the unconventional politician of Donald Trump, and frankly, a somewhat unconventional politician of Bernie Sanders that they were gravitating towards as well in the first place, because typical politicians are kind of insufferable. They never answer the question. They always dodge. They never say anything significant or substantive. They're just on the briefing book. And that, by and large, is the story of what happened last night. All right. So who do the viewers say ultimately won? CNN had some polling here. This was their snapshot of a poll. A bit of a gender divide here, as we've seen within this presidential race writ large. Men gave Harris an edge, but a slight edge. They basically thought it was a wash. Women overwhelmingly chose Harris as the winner, sort of reflective of the gender divide that we see writ large within this race. I would say overall, from my own judgment, look, Kamala had some very strong moments at the top where she was extraordinarily practiced and prepared to talk about coronavirus in particular. She had some straight to camera moments that I thought landed and were effective and were very much on message. She's a little bit unsteadier throughout the debate. I think she had some moments that people, frankly, would just find kind of off-putting. Mike Pence, completely unflappable. But then again, he has an absolutely indefensible position to try to defend. So bottom line for me is, since it was more or less a wash, I don't think anyone is going to change their vote or change their mind based on what happened last night. That's a win for Biden-Harris. We've been showing you the polls here. Biden is up by a lot nationally in a slew of battleground polls yesterday, had him up significantly in every major battleground state. So a status quo debate is a win for Biden-Harris. And really what it comes down to is this. This was Kamala's first answer out of the gates, obviously one she was completely practiced and prepared for. And frankly, it landed. And to me, this is the whole ballgame right here.
Well, the American people have witnessed what is the greatest failure of any presidential administration in the history of our country. And here are the facts. 210,000 dead people in our country in just the last several months. Over 7 million people who have contracted this disease. 1 in 5 businesses closed. We're looking at frontline workers who have been treated like sacrificial workers. We are looking at over 30 million people who in the last several months had to file for unemployment. And here's the thing. On January 28th, the vice president and the president were informed about the nature of this pandemic. They were informed that it's lethal in consequence, that it is airborne, that it will affect young people, and that it would be contracted because it is airborne. And they knew what was happening, and they didn't tell you. Can you imagine if you knew on January 28th, as opposed to March 13th, what they knew, what you might have done to prepare? They knew and they covered it up. The president said it was a hoax. They minimized the seriousness of it. The president said, you're on one side of his ledger if you wear a mask, you're on the other side of his ledger if you don't.
It's a devastating case. And look, Mike Pence is very skilled at defending President Trump. He's very skilled at going through the briefing book. He came up in talk radio. You are not going to knock this guy off his game. But essentially, there's no defending this. There's no defending what we all have lived through for months and months and months and has been on full display over the past week. So Pence leaned on, the Biden-Obama swine flu response, which no one even remembers anyone who got the swine flu. We certainly don't remember having to hide in our houses, wear masks everywhere, and watching our grandparents get ill and worry about their life and our livelihoods. And he also leaned heavily on the fact that they shut down travel from China, which, look, okay, good. It was good that you did that at the time, but you continue to downplay it and you continue to not take it seriously. And the reality is people have paid the price as a result, and you still are not moving forward to help Americans with an economic stimulus that would get them through this time. So in a sense, after that answer, that debate was effectively over because that's the issue that people care about. That's by and large what they're voting on. That is what this election came down to. And so, Sagar, Kamala did what she needed to do.
Yeah, and I mean, depressed to say it. I thought she had some terrible moments, and there's something about her which grates me in particular, and has since the very beginning of the primary. I think it's just a total lack of ideological, just the complete power grab and the the shamelessness of the shape-shifting. But you got to be honest. This whole thing is about coronavirus and the economy. And on both, the American people do not trust President Trump or Vice President Pence. I'll talk about in my radar the missed opportunities to go after Kamala on this. If you really wanted to win, at this point, COVID is wash. It's not going to happen for them. But, you could probably pull something out on the economy, but they refuse to go with the tactics that they need to really win trust with the American people. And of course, they have not followed through on the stimulus, which is the number one concern for so many tens of millions, but not just out of work, underemployed, people who have got cut hours, people who are on the brink. We're still shedding 800K jobs a week. And if you think those jobs are coming back, these aren't those temporary ones where they bounce back a few months. It's over for most of them. And that's 6 months of permanent unemployment. Who of us realistically thinks that this stuff is going to end until third quarter 2021, which is when the CDC says a full vaccine will be available? And even a vaccine, you need like 40% of the population vaccinated before you can even really go out. So I'm just looking at this. I'm like, unless you are promising a massive, transformative economic stimulus, then you're not going to get anything. And Kamala's not doing that either. But she has the veneer of offering more than Trump and Pence. That's enough. People are it's a binary choice, right?
They've allowed it to be a referendum on Trump.
Which is stupid.
They really, and we talk, it really is interesting since we talked to the Trump campaign every week to see the way that they've shifted over time. In the early days, the two things we heard consistently was we're going to make this a choice election where it is truly this is Donald Trump and his agenda, what he's going to do, and this is Joe Biden and his agenda, what he's going to do. Of course, they were all in from the jump on socialist, Marxist, Trojan horse, blah, blah, blah. But, okay, we're going to try to make it a choice. That makes some sense. And the thing we always heard was we're going to focus on the economy.
Yeah.
And it made sense because even now, even today, you ask voters how they feel about Biden versus Trump on every single issue, Biden wins. But the one where Trump is close and sometimes still wins is on the economy. That is his strongest suit. But you can't make the economy your focal point when you're doing nothing for the economy, when you've pinned everything on the freaking stock market. That is the symbol of people being disconnected, the rich being disconnected from the rest of the country. It's the exact polar opposite of what he understood in 2016 and now is on the complete opposite side of this time around. Look, Kamala was not incredible. She's very practiced. She's very rehearsed. But she didn't need to do much. And she handled herself perfectly fine throughout the debate. There were some stumbles later on. There were some things that grated me. There were some things that grated you. Mike Pence is talking point machine. He's not an inspirational figure either. There's nothing special about him either in any of this. But they needed to make something happen, and they were unable to do it last night. The last thing, and I'll say that was kind of an interesting note to me, and I'm going to guess they have some polling or some focus, some indication that this was the right way to go. When Kamala focused on coronavirus, she did not actually fixate on the president and all the people around him having caught it and his irresponsibility there. She really was laser focused in those like to the camera moments on you and your life and their failures of leadership over the past few months, which I just thought was an interesting note of what feedback they must be getting about what messages on this actually land.
Look, everything is about you, the voter, right? Everything is about, it feels intimate whenever you speak directly into a camera and you say, this is what matters to you and your life. She had several moments like that.
Joe tried to pull that off in his debate too.
Problem is he can't get through.
Well, and also Trump like cut him off every 3 seconds. But
Kamala, to the best of her ability, delivered, I think, 2 of those straight to cams on pre-existing conditions and on the economy. I thought they were very effective. I mean, that it's an intimate setting.
Yeah.
It's like they knew they didn't do anything. They're not doing anything for you. And as much as I hate to say it, they have the upper hand in this negotiation or in this debate, and they don't need to have it.
But it was a preview for me of what is going to be super annoying and dispiriting about a Biden administration.
Oh, yeah.
Because as much as people feel, and I feel this too, of like, God, let's just have like some normalcy. And certainly this debate last night, at the end of it, I didn't want to like scream the way that I did after watching Trump like do whatever he was doing last week, which was so obnoxious and annoying, like putting any sort of policy or anything aside. But it's not like the normal conventional approach is great. And not only on a theater perspective where it's just like, this is dull and these people aren't answering the questions and we're not actually getting anything out of this, but from a substantive perspective, because that's basically what translates into the type of administration that you're going to get. So that was, for me, kind of the most interesting part of last night was like, this is a preview of what return to normal actually means and how it's less than you want it to be.
It's a very bitter aftertaste.
All right, Saira, looking forward to your radar. That's next.